I'm going to show you how to make it, and then I'm going to show you how to win it. Okay, everybody, I've got a fun one for you this week. I'm going to show you how I make my Orko wallet, and we are going to give you a chance to win it. So I've partnered with Trevor over at edc.knife and tool for a cool little giveaway. And he's going to be giving away this, the Kizer Feist Denim Blue Marcata Black Blade. He asked me to go along with it, so I'm going to be tossing in a matching Orko wallet made from blue Mexico leather and black Maya belly. Hand stitched, beautiful thread. So what do you have to do to win these cool prizes? You got to post a photo. It's a photo competition. Post a photo with a knife and some leather. Tag Trevor, edc.knife and tool, and myself, norfolk.handmade, over on Instagram. Post your photo, do your best work, and him and I are going to select our favorite. So to know when it's underway, go follow us both on Instagram now, and you're going to see the official post go up. Once that's up, you're good to go. I think it's going to run for 2 weeks, starting June 2nd, give or take. All the details are going to be the Instagram post, so I'm not going to go into all of that here in case we decide to change it after I've recorded all this, and I don't want to have to go and re-edit. That's a pain in the butt. So good luck to everybody who wants to participate in that photo contest. If you're here for the leather work and not the photo contest, let's get into the build. So you can get these plans on my website for a few bucks. There's a link in the description below as well. If you see any of the materials or tools that I'm using in this video and you want to get some for yourself, check the description below. I have all of Amazon affiliate links linked in the description below. I get a very small percentage of those, so it helps to support the channel if you use those links. So getting into this, you're going to lay your pieces onto your leather. You can actually see here that I'm cutting this out of a section that I had already traced for an old wallet pattern. So there's going to be a little bit of extra waste than I would normally have here. But I've had this piece of leather sitting around for a bit. I thought it was perfect for this project, so I wanted to use it up. All these larger offcuts I'm actually going to end up using for keychains or bookmarks or something like that. So it won't go to waste, but you will see there's a little excess leather around my pieces that wouldn't normally be there. So I'm going to use my skiving knife to trim off these pieces. I like using this one for the straight cuts. I find it a little more efficient than using a ruler and knife. Use whatever is most comfortable to get these pieces nice and straight. So after that first one, I realized my knife was a little bit dull, so I just gave it a quick strop, and you'd be surprised how much of a difference it makes in the cut. This is way easier to cut through this leather with that quick little strop. And it only took me a few seconds to do that. So keep that strop block handy, because the last thing you want is dull tools. They aren't fun, they're dangerous. Keep those things sharp. So with the two interior parts cut out, I'm going to go in and quickly round over the top corners of those interior pieces, because we're going to be pre-finishing the tops. It makes it easier now to round this over versus when it's all glued up. So now I'm finding a good spot for my two front pockets. Now I've selected this specific area on the hide because I like the grain pattern. Because this leather is very high quality, it's finished right out to the edge, so you can use the vast majority of it. But this was selected for that very specific section because I like the grain. So I'll just roughly cut out that section and then come through and trim out those pieces on that smaller section. So then trimming out the tops of those pockets, I like using the X-Acto for this curved work. I find it a little bit more accurate than using the skiving knife. Keep that thing nice and sharp. And this is super easy. The knife just glides right through and it doesn't take much pressure, and it's good to have these accurate skills. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-finish the tops of the pockets and the interior pieces. Once I've done the initial sand, I'll come through with my beveler, knock off those edges, and then go through, add the Tokonole, burnish the top, and they're good to go for glue up. So I'm going to rough up the interior parts where my front pockets have to be glued to. Because this leather has quite a heavy finish on it. I need to rough it up or else the glue isn't going to stick that well. And we want to make sure we have good adhesion for those pockets. So I'm just using this little needle tip squeeze bottle for my glue. I really like this applicator for the glue. I find it extremely accurate and it's really easy to spread just with using that tip. Keeps everything nice and clean. Line up your corners, stick everything down, make sure the other corner lines up. I just use my fingers to press down to make sure the edge is nice and clean, nice and straight. Do the same thing to the other side. And then that is it for gluing those pockets down. If you cut everything accurately, everything should line up perfectly once you glue these two pieces together. Before I glue those two main panels together though, I'm going to round over the corners on one side. I like doing this before gluing everything up. I find I get a more accurate corner when I'm only trimming down 2 layers of leather versus 4. So after this is glued up, I'll just come through, follow that edge, and it'll be a nice rounded, clean corner. So you can see that rounded corner there that I've just trimmed off. So I add the glue around the corner, spread it out evenly, do the same thing to the other side. So I'm just adding glue right up to the top of the pocket. And then here I had a bit too much glue there. I try to spread it out as best I can. It's not that big a deal, just too much glue, takes a bit longer to dry. So stick those pieces together, line up your corners. Again, if you've cut everything accurately, the tops of each of those pockets and the tops of the interior pieces should all line up perfectly. So marking out my 4mm stitch line, taking my time to do that to make sure that's nice and accurate. So what I'm doing here is I mark my corners first, lightly mark up to the top of the pocket to make sure everything lines up properly. And then I give a light tap, just piercing through that first layer of leather. And that sets my spacing so that when I go through and hammer all the way, things aren't going to move on me. So I want to make sure my corners are lined up perfectly first. And then because I've done this digitally, then I know everything is going to line up. Just sometimes things grow and shrink once you've cut it to the leather. So it's good to verify instead of just hammering right through right out of the gate. So you can see there, I'm just counting through, making sure everything's going to line up properly. So you can see there, I just mark those two ends to see where my start and stop is. Lightly mark with my large iron. And then it ends up, the spacing is as planned. So once that's pre-punched, I'll then go through, punch all the way through, and then we'll start stitching. So the saddle stitch, you've seen that lots. I'll do a dedicated video at some point on how I saddle stitch. So the thread I'm using is a linen thread, so you can't melt it. So I just add a bit of glue onto the end of my awl and push that thread back in, hammer down the threads, stitching's done. So I have a whole video series on how to edge finish. I'll link that above. Go check that out. I'm not going to go into detail here. One thing I will say is you can see me using that brush with the Tokonole on the edge. I like adding a really heavy layer of Tokonole after my 600 grit. I find that to be the most efficient one. I used to use Tokonole between each grit. I don't do that anymore. I sand right up to 600, dry, and then add that Tokonole with a nice heavy layer. I find that the most efficient way to get a nice clean edge. And then finishing off with some melted wax. I find this one is what's really going to give me that nice glass edge. You get the idea there. I'm just spreading it out, trying to get as even as I can, and then I'm going to come through with that coarse canvas cloth and burnish it out. If it's not quite smooth enough, I'll come through with a very high grit sandpaper, maybe 600, to even out that wax to get a nice, beautiful, clean edge. So there's the finished product. Stitching turned out great. There's that edge. And then of course, it's always good to get that ubiquitous reflection shot with the text. And that's the result of that melted wax on the edge. So there you go. That's how I make an Orko wallet. So if you've got the plans and you followed along, hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. And again, if you want to participate in that photo contest giveaway where you could win this wallet and a slick looking knife, head over to Instagram, follow myself, norfolk.handmade, and follow Trevor over at edc.knifeandtool. If you need any of the tools and materials that you've seen in this video, check the description below as well. I've got my affiliate links there. Those are all for Amazon. So if you make a purchase through one of those links, I get a very small percentage, and it goes a long way to helping the channel. You can also check out my website, norfolkhandmade.com, to see the wallets that are currently available, as well as you can get the plans there for the Orko wallet and a few other ones if you're looking for some sweet plans. Okay, everybody, hope you've enjoyed the video. We'll see you in the next one.